was ancient Baalbek according to legend? An ancient temple built on the location of ancient aliens, extraterrestrials, landing strips. This is not the first time we see this. This also happened at the temple of Set in Abydos, Egypt. And one of the last pharaohs of Egypt did not want that destroyed because he said that's where the overlords and the true lords of Egypt first landed, in Abydos, Egypt. So we also have in nearby Lebanon this temple to Zeus, made with megalithic stones that we today could not use to construct with our technology. And this is the temple of Zeus, as you can see, in Baalbek, Lebanon. Andrew Thomas writes in his book, The Legacy of the Lords of the Stars, from the Book of Ancient Astronauts. He says, during the last Arab-Israeli war, I found myself trapped in Lebanon, and there I met a tribal leader of the Druze, one of the 5 holders of the holy books. He told me that their religion was founded by a space creature, that they believed in the universality of life. The ancient name of Baalbek was Iliupoli, in Greek meaning city of the sun. Legend has it that Nimrod of Babylon built this megalithic platform and then built a powerful flying machine that lifted him into the skies for a long journey. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Now let's keep in mind the Vimanas of ancient Hindu legends of India, over 8,000 verses having to do with flying ships. And now going back to this, looking at Mount Hebron during the Barbarian gunfire, I suddenly remembered that Nimrod had made an uneven landing on this mountain after his voyage into space. It's worth mentioning that according to the classical writers, the Hadad temple in Baalbek had such miracles as luminous spheres of stone lit by the priests at night. From the Book of Ancient Astronauts by George Gall Jacques Bergier, World of Good Books. Baalbek, an ancient sanctuary, a temple of the landing since antiquity. In Lebanon, 4,000 feet above sea level, is the mythical Baalbek, the ancient monument with a history spanning over 9,000 years. Baalbek was an ancient Phoenician city named after the god Baal. And according to Phoenician legend, Baalbek was the place where Baal first arrived on earth in antiquity, and therefore the original building should have been built as a huge landing platform for the aliens who once visited our planet. So what is beneath this gigantic temple of Zeus, this ancient temple in Baalbek, Lebanon? One of the greatest power landscapes of the ancient world. For thousands of years, the secrets have been shrouded in darkness or bathed in artificial light by those who would offer us a simple solution to the mysteries. We see the columns of the Temple of Zeus, the largest temple ever built by the Romans, one of the wonders of the ancient world. In this remote area of the Mecca Valley in present-day Lebanon, Roman Empire emperors traveled 1,500 miles to offer sacrifices to their gods and receive oracles for the fate of their conquests and empire. Curiosity seems that no Roman Empire emperor ever demanded credit for the complex of Baalbek's temple or for building its massive foundations. They already found it there. Similarly, we find no evidence of Roman construction among the local population. Instead, what we find are myths that urge that Baalbek was built by superhuman powers at a time long before human civilization began. In other words, it was pre-Great Flood, pre-flood civilization. The Temple of Zeus was dedicated to Zeus, the Heliopolitan, in other words, from Heliopolis. Zeus, as we know, was one of the top god of the Greek pantheon of the Olympian gods. And this temple was built above the temple of Baal Hadad. 6 Corinthian-style columns remain standing out of 19 in the eastern peristyle, and another 8 of them were dismantled by the Byzantines at the behest of Justinian to decorate the Church of Holy Wisdom Cathedral in today's Istanbul, formerly Constantinople. So Justinian took some of these columns in order to use them in the cathedral, the Church of Holy Wisdom. All the columns in the temple were 54, and the temple was 50 meters wide, 90 meters long, 20 meters high. The city remained under Greek rule until 64 BC, when the Romans conquered it, while in 15 BC, Octavian Augustus turned it into a Roman veteran colony and renamed it Colonia Julia Augusta Felix Iliopolitana. During this period, the city was decorated with beautiful sculptures and majestic buildings, while those built by the Ptolemies were rebuilt and repaired. Remember, Ptolemy was one of the 4 generals of Alexander the Great, who took the area of Egypt and Arabia. Now, the strange foundation of the Temple of Baalbek, Zeus. Modern studies have shown that the foundation of the temple is much older than the Temple of Zeus rebuilt by the Romans, much older even from the Hellenistic era. These are giant monoliths that weighed from 400 to 800 tons each, and it's probable that they existed there even before the reconstruction of the Temple of Baal. No archaeologist could explain how they were transported there. Even today, we don't have the technology to lift such heavy stones. One only has to consider the weight of the Stonehenge stones is 40 tons each. Well, these are 400 to 800 tons each. Nearby can be found the ancient quarry used by the builders of the monument. There is a stone of the south. It's the largest processed monolith on Earth, weighing 1,242 tons. It's even heavier than the pregnant stone, which weighs about 1,000 tons. Both giant stones were intended for the construction of the monument, but for some reason never reached their destination. Now, according to Arabic and Jewish sources, the Arabs believed that Baalbek once belonged to the legendary Nimrod, who was Noah's great-grandson, who ruled this region of Lebanon. And according to the Arabic manuscript, Nimrod sent giants to rebuild Baalbek after the Great Flood, after the deluge. He used giants to rebuild this temple. So Noah's great-grandson Nimrod used giants to rebuild the Baalbek temple after the flood. Another legend says Nimrod rebelled against Jehovah, built the Tower of Babel here in order to ascend to heaven and attack God. So this is believed to be the actual location of the Tower of Babel. According to a variation of the myth, Nimrod climbed to the top of the tower, but was as far away from his goal, paradise, as he started. And when the tower collapsed, Nimrod tried to ascend into the skies in a chariot drawn by 4 mighty birds, but the chariot, after wandering for a long time in space, eventually crashed on Mount Hermon, whereupon Nimrod was killed. Earlier in the story, Nimrod had a visit from Abraham, who came as a messenger of God to warn Nimrod the punishment for his sins. But Nimrod, outraged by these threats, had thrown Abraham into a fiery furnace from which the latter came out unharmed in some way. This is what the local Muslims believed, and it was beyond the ability of humans to move huge stones of Baalbek. Instead of giants, however, they credited this job to demons, or what they call jinn. Muslim tradition says that Baalbek was once the home of Abraham and later of Solomon. He also suggests that the prophet Elijah ascended to heaven from Baalbek on a horse of fire. Other myths have linked Baalbek to the biblical figure of Cain, Adam's son, claiming that he built it as a refuge after being cursed by God. Now, according to Estefan Dowehi, the Maronite patriarch of Lebanon, he says, tradition says that the fortress of Baalbek is the oldest building in the world. Cain, the son of Adam, built it in 133 AD, Well, that we know that is a terribly wrong date. During one of his delusional madness, he gave him the name of his son Enoch and housed him with the giants who were punished for their wickedness by the flood. Now, contemporary theories of Baalbek. Few contemporary writers have dared to face the riddle of Baalbek, perhaps because Lebanon was off limit to tourists during the turbulent decades at the end of the second millennium. One author who seemed to be of interest is Andrew Collins, whose article suggests the possibility that Baalbek was an astronomical observatory, according to Zachariah Sitchin, who claims that Baalbek was a space center built by a tribe of visiting gods called the Anunnaki as a launch center for their spaceships. One aspect of Sitchin's theory that raises a question is the connection between Baalbek Heliopolis, the city of the sun, and the ancient myth of the sun god that Baalbek used to park his chariot. To close with a fun anecdote, the prize for Baalbek's most imaginative theory should undoubtedly be given to English traveler David Urquhart, who suggested that the builders of Baalbek had used mastodons, huge extinct ivory mammals, to help mammals move the stones. Conclusions? Why did successive Roman emperors travel thousands of miles to Baalbek to receive oracles from there? Why did they build the largest of all their temples so far from Rome? What prompted them to send the red granite column so far from Aswan in Egypt to the port of Tripoli, and from there to Baalbek via the city of Homs, a detour that, in order to avoid the mountains, required a journey of 200 kilometers? This was certainly an inappropriate place to pillar the largest Roman temple in the world, so why did it have to happen here in the Bekaa Valley from all sides? As one with knowledge of the subject of Baalbek commented, though, nowhere is it clearly stated for what reason the religious significance of this city is attributed. Eventually, one suspects that the answer to Baalbek's sanctity lies in the decipherment of its ancient religion, because it is the religion that has been the guiding force in Baalbek since time immemorial. The sanctity of Baalbek in Roman times has already been mentioned, and one's attention is inevitably drawn to the trinity of gods worshipped there: Aphrodite, Dionysius, and the mighty Zeus, all ancient Greek gods of Olympus. The later incorporates all the symbolism of the archetypal god of the storm. The 5th century author Microbius describes the statue of Zeus as follows: the statue of the god is made of gold, representing a person without a beard, who holds in his right hand a whip like a rider, and in his left hand a thunderbolt with ears of wheat. What was the meaning of this storm god with lightning? The lightning rod of Zeus. To modern scholars, Zeus was the god of thunder and lightning, and nothing but thunder and lightning. If we're to believe modern scholars, our search for the religious concept in Baalbek culminates in the primitive worship of the secular gods of meteorology, wheat. In addition, it should be noted that the Roman gods are only part of the answer of Baalbek's sanctity, because the city was actually named after Baal, the god of the Canaanite and Phoenician storms, parallels with the gods of the ancient Mesopotamian cults of the explosions of the planets. So the writer's private research says that he suggests that the Canaanites and Phoenician religions themselves could be described as worshipping the explosion of the planets or of a meteor impact during the pre-literate era. Could a meteorite be the key to Baalbek's significance? The northern Heliopolis, just as a so-called Ben stone meteorite was the key to An's meaning, the South Heliopolis in ancient Egypt. And what about those giant stones in the trilogy? Were they deliberately constructed, perhaps to give rise to the idea of meteorites, the giant seeds of life embedded in the foundations of Mother Earth? Or were they just the remnants of an imperfect defensive wall? We may never know the answer to this question, or the question of how the trilogy stones moved. The problem is that everyone sees in Baalbek what they want to see, based on their prejudice and theory, maybe it will be like that forever. One final thought, though, to close. If the mysterious Baalbek stones push us to exercise our minds, then perhaps the ancient builders were partially achieving their goals. But in order to pass as beginners the test of the Trilith, what is necessary for us to do is more than just exercise our mind. It's necessary to find the first challenge, to challenge everything we have been taught about the meaning and the origin of religion. This is from Wikipedia and MLordandGod, and I've translated this for you from Greek articles. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.